Number 10. Punisher. To be quite frank, you get it? Because his name is Frank Castle, and be frank is a saying, and I'm definitely the first person to ever make that joke. Like, ever. Okay, but back to my main point. Punisher hates a lot of people, but he has feuded with, the X-Men from time to time. Over the years, they have disagreed. Punisher has a very clear way of doing things, and that doesn't always line up with how the X-Men operate. He's also had beef with Wolverine on several occasions, which leads the two to fight each other. I mean, the Punisher even shot him in a not so pleasant place. Oh man, just thinking about that, yikes. Like, I know he can regenerate, but ouch. That's, ugh. Number 9. Gambit. Now this one is interesting because Gambit has been a part of the X-Men. He's generally one of the more famous ones, but that hasn't stopped him from getting, annoyed with them. It's even gotten to the point where he turned on the team before because he believed he was in the right and they were in the wrong. Though, he was tricked by Mystique, and to be fair, he did start out as a villain of sorts and eventually made his way over to the good side. So he wasn't raised in the X-Mansion and like a lot of the other mutants. Also, like Punisher, he also has a rivalry with Wolverine. The two of them have had some very intense duels in the Danger Room, and I mean intense. Number 8. Iron Man. This one isn't a big surprise. Tony has clashed with a lot of superheroes. Civil War. One mutant who Iron Man has clashed with more so than others is Namor. The two have fought multiple times throughout the years, and during the Civil War event, Iron Man specifically told the X-Men just to stay out of it because clearly they didn't all agree. Number 7. Spider-Man. Spider-Man is a likable guy, but that doesn't mean he gets along with everyone. He's had disagreements with the X-Men a few times. I mean, who hasn't, right? Clearly this list. Mostly with Wolverine, again, when the two of them were both Avengers. They were always bickering and could barely stand to be in the same room. Also, in season 2 of the 90s Spider-Man animated series, oh god, man, that show. Love that show so much. During the show, Spider-Man had a run-in with the X-Men in season 2, and when he started to have a problem with mutation. And let's just say things didn't go very smoothly. Multiple fights broke out between Spidey and multiple members of the X-Men. Number 6. Captain Marvel. Carol Danvers isn't the biggest fan of the X-Men. Well, not so much the X-Men in general, more like one specific person, Rogue. The two of them have had a long history of hating each other. When Carol Danvers returned to the Marvel Universe after a brief period away, she didn't have her memories or powers. She was later brought to Xavier to see if he could unlock her memories. And he did. Mostly. There were some that were permanently lost, and it turns out the culprit was none other than a teenage Rogue, who at the time was not working with the X-Men. Rogue used her abilities on Carol far longer than she should have, which ended up wiping her memories and taking away her abilities. Carol ended up getting, her newer cosmic powers later on, and Rogue eventually joined the X-Men. And you would think that time would have healed all those wounds, but no. The two still don't really like each other all that much. Number 5. The Fantastic Four. Over the years, all members of the Fantastic Four have had some sort of issue with the X-Men. But the reason I'm choosing to group them together as one is because of a fairly recent storyline between the two Marvel teams. It has to do with Reed and Sue's son, Franklin Richards, who is a mutant, a very powerful one. And in this new story, the two teams are going against each other because they both have a different idea of what to do with him. The X-Men believe that he belongs with them, but they also secretly want to study him because his powers are slowly depleting, and Xavier is worried it could start to have effects on other mutants. Meanwhile, the Fantastic Four believe Franklin should stay with them because he is a part of their family, but Franklin believes that his father is lying to him. Ooh, drama. Reed is trying to look for a cure to stop Franklin's powers from depleting, but Franklin believes Reed secretly wants his powers to be gone forever. Number 4. Blade. Blade's feud with the X-Men comes mostly from the Curse of the Mutant storyline, where Blade and the X-Men were working together to help with the vampire problem. Needless to say, things didn't go very well. Blade didn't really get along with a lot of them because Blade's mission is to kill vampires. But when Jubilee turned into one, Blade felt that, he had to take matters into his own hands and, just kill her. But obviously the X-Men disagreed and wanted to protect their own. Number 3, Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch is a complicated one because technically she is a mutant and was the daughter of Magneto. But then Marvel kind of changed her origin so that she wasn't anymore. It's all a little bit weird. She is also primarily an Avenger and even ended up with, fellow Avenger Vision, and they had their own kids. But her disagreements with the X-Men have varied over the years. There was even a point during the House of M storyline where she used her powers and essentially took out almost the whole mutant community. So that's pretty big, if you ask me. And I know you didn't ask, I wanted to say it anyway. Number 2, the Hulk. Hulk doesn't get along with a lot of heroes. We all know that. To be fair, a lot of times people are kind of unfair toward him. I mean, they did send him away, which gave us Planet Hulk and World War Hulk. But his feud with the X-Men has been the cause of some very major fights, specifically Wolverine. Man, I am sensing a pattern here. Why is it always so many people are just, I don't like the X-Men, but more specifically, Wolverine. The Hulk versus Wolverine fights are usually always legendary. I mean, that was how Wolverine was first introduced during the Incredible Hulk 181. The two of them fought in the forests of Canada. Oh, Canada. Hulk even ripped Wolverine in half in Ultimate Hulk vs. Wolverine. Their feud also spawned the 2009 animated film Hulk vs. Wolverine. Is it weird that I kind of want them just to keep hating each other? I know, we get so many epic moments that way. Although, it is cool when they do decide to occasionally team up together. Number 1, Deadpool. Deadpool. Man, seriously. Deadpool's just awesome. He's just one of those unique and crazy characters, and not just in the Marvel universe, but in comics in general. There's no one else like him. Deadpool and the X-Men have had lots of encounters over the years, mostly because, he doesn't really agree with what they do, and they don't really agree with what he does. It's also been the inspiration of the Deadpool and X-Men live action films. In Deadpool 2, the main X-Men are specifically hiding from him because they just don't want to associate themselves with him. And even when he does join the team, he ends up killing someone, and Colossus just doesn't take that well. So at the end of the day, the two of them don't really get along, and to Deadpool, that's completely fine.
Number 10, Quicksilver. Quicksilver has kind of played on both the good side and the bad side. So that right off the bat tells you that he's not good friends with all the X-Men, specifically Wolverine. This isn't just the case on the main Earth either. Wolverine and Quicksilver also have a funny relationship on Earth 1610. Also, Wolverine did find him annoying in Days of Future Past. Even though, he went for him to help with breaking Magneto deal, the two of them just they weren't the bestest of friends. Number 9, Gambit. Gambit and Wolverine have a long history of not getting along. Seriously, ever since Gambit joined the team, there has been tension between the two of them. In Gambit's defense, Wolverine isn't the most loving and welcoming guy, but Gambit has been known to annoy a lot of people too. The two have fought in the Danger Room during Uncanny X-Men multiple times. And one of those was because Gambit became friends with Storm when he arrived, which made Logan mad. So you can kind of see why Gambit may not be so fond of the Canadian superhero. Also, the two of them fought in X-Men Origins Wolverine, so there's that as well. Number 8, Blade. Blade has clashed with Wolverine on multiple occasions, but one of the most famous ones was during the Curse of the Mutants storyline. You see, Blade kills vampires. That's his thing. But when Jubilee turned into one, he wanted to kill her because that's what he does. Which, of course, didn't sit too well with Wolverine, and the two disagreed over it. Which, obviously, didn't sit well with Blade. His mission is to kill vampires, and when you get in the way of that, it annoys him. So, odds are, he probably won't like you very much after that. Which is the case with Wolverine. Number 7, Emma Frost. Emma Frost is usually against the X-Men. But, like a lot of people in the Marvel Universe, she changes sides sometimes. It happens, and we just need to deal with it. But when she does come to the good side, it's never perfect. Emma is very close with Cyclops, and she hates Jean Grey. Wolverine loves Jean, and isn't the biggest fan of Cyclops. So, whenever there's a feud, Emma is always on Scott's side, and goes against good old Wolverine. They call each other a lot of mean names. And, can we not just all get along, guys? Come on. Who am I kidding? This is just the comics. We need feuds. Makes everything more interesting. We love that juicy drama, even if we don't admit it. Number 6, The Punisher. Oh man, Frank Castle does not like Wolverine. The two of them have never really gotten along. Frank shot him somewhere very unpleasant. Very, very unpleasant. It's a good thing that Wolverine has his amazing healing factor. God. But regardless, it would still hurt. But basically, Wolverine kind of interferes with Frank's work. Then Punisher tells him to back off. Wolverine's like, no, no thank you, but then they fight. But Frank basically destroyed Wolverine at one point. his face was ripped off, and then he got crushed, completely crushed. It's actually really weird and disturbing, but hey, those two words perfectly sum up Frank Castle. Really weird and disturbing. But in a good way, I guess. Number 5, Namor. Namor has had a lot of feuds with a lot of people. Namor does have kind of a big ego, so I think that's also usually the cause, but not always. I mean, if this list is any indication, a lot of the time it's Wolverine who gets on someone else's nerves. That's just who he is. Wolverine and Namor have fought on multiple occasions, with both of them having won one of those fights at one point or another. But at the end of the day, they just seem to have completely different ideas of how to deal with certain situations. Maybe one day, we will even get to see this feud on the big screen, since the MCU now has access to both of these characters. That'd be so cool. Although, it would have been even cooler to see Hugh Jackman's Wolverine interact with Namor and all the other heroes, but sadly, I guess that's probably not gonna happen anymore. But hey, there's also a multiverse. I'm just saying. Number 4, Deadpool. Wade and Logan. Logan and Wade. Will these two ever get along? Probably not. They fight all the time, and both get on each other's nerves. Even in the films, this is the case, and I don't think Wade will ever forgive Logan for allowing him to be an X-Men Origins Wolverine. That seems to be a tender spot for him. I mean, he time traveled to change it at the end of Deadpool 2. He shot himself in that. Although, he does love Hugh Jackman, as he stated multiple times, so that's a bright spot in the relationship. But as for just Wolverine and Deadpool, I don't know if the two will ever get along. It's just hard for them. Number 3, Spider-Man. You're probably thinking to yourself, hey, Spider-Man is such a good guy, how could he hate anyone? Well, I wish that was true, but like everyone on this list, he's not so fond of, yeah, you guessed it, Wolverine. I mean, the two of them starred in a comic called Spider-Man vs. Wolverine, and they have fought multiple other times. Wolverine is not the biggest fan of the webhead either, so it kind of evens itself out, right? That's how it works. Yeah, that's how it works. Well, regardless, the two still have worked together, but that doesn't mean they always like each other. But this is something I want to see on the big screen. Wolverine and Spider-Man interacting or duking it out. Come on, Marvel, we need this. Even if it's during some weird multiverse event. Hugh Jackman, Tom Holland, it'd be so cool. Come on, guys. We need to get this trending. Hugh Jackman and Tom Holland meeting as Wolverine and Spider-Man. That would be one of the biggest cinematic crossovers. I get goosebumps just thinking about it. Number 2, Hulk. These two have hated each other ever since, well, Wolverine was first introduced. Literally, Wolverine debuted in a Hulk issue and the two of them fought. And they have really been friends since. I mean, sometimes Hulk is the one that kind of starts this whole feud, but let's be honest, it's mostly Wolverine. I mean, one time Wolverine just stabbed Hulk in the head for no reason at all. Hulk was just like, hey guys, I'm here to help, and then Wolverine just was like, nope, stab you in the head. They even hate each other in the Ultimate Universe, and the Old Man Logan comic. I mean, in the Ultimate Universe, Hulk ripped Wolverine in half. But in Logan's defense, in the Old Man Logan comic, Hulk is a little weird. I mean, he's even a little weird in Ultimate Universe. Everyone's weird in the Ultimate Universe. There was even an animated film, Hulk vs. Wolverine. Their rivalry is legendary, and fans like it that way. But Hulk does have some valid reasons to hate him. Number 1, Cyclops. I think everyone knew this was going to be number 1. Man, these guys hate each other for one reason. Well, actually kind of a few different reasons, but one main reason. And I think we all know what it is. Huh? Okay, I'm assuming everyone probably just said it at the same time. Jean Grey. They both like Jean a lot. Scott was dating Jean, and then Wolverine showed up, and then this whole love triangle started. I mean, they have duked it out multiple times, and Wolverine has even, started dating Jean at one point. Also, Wolverine doesn't really respect Scott as a leader, and that kind of angers Scott. But hey, Wolverine doesn't really respect anyone's leadership, so come on, Scott, don't take it personally. A lot of people hate Wolverine. That is why this whole list exists in the first place. But regardless, they still work together from time to time, but I just don't think that Scott will ever really truly be good friends with Logan. All right, there you have it, guys, the top 10 superheroes who hate Wolverine. What does your list look like? Let us know down in those comments below, and if you didn't hate this video, you see what I did there? Because the video is about hating someone. Yeah, okay. No, I know it was a bad joke. All right, I'm completely aware.
The X-Men and mutant kind have had many villains over the years. Some of their vendettas are more personal, and not all of them hate mutants, but these ones most certainly do. Senator Robert Kelly is a complex figure who started out as a politician that avidly opposed and even seemed to hate mutants. Really, Kelly was worried about mutants, and he feared what their growing mutant population might bring about. He's an interesting foe when it comes to his hatred of mutant kind, as he's actually kind of one of the more level-headed and even somewhat reasonable enemies of the X-Men when it comes to how he feels about mutants. Kelly mostly just wants what is best for humankind, which means that he can be reasoned with at times and even has allied himself with mutants. While he's also certainly become involved in plots that are centered around mutant oppression and even in some cases mutant destruction, in the end he does come around after his life has been saved multiple times by mutants during attempted assassination plots. However, after realizing the error of his ways and reconsidering his stance on mutants, he was then unfortunately killed in one of those assassination attempts, which managed to actually succeed, even with Cable attempting to protect him. Which other villains do you think could or should be redeemed? Do you think any of the people that hate mutants can be redeemed? I mean, I feel like Kelly was, but I don't know. Although the creation and formation of unity we saw from mutant kind during the Dawn of X era caused programs who would use mutants as test subjects and as a means to advance human evolution to shut down, that does not mean that the people behind those organizations disappeared completely. In fact, it seems that instead the few people left who still believed in those programs found one another and created a more secretive organization in the shadows known as Zeno. Zeno was the group behind the assassination of Charles Xavier in the X-Force series, and while Xavier was of course successfully resurrected, Zeno still created quite a shiver of panic among the mutants of Krakoa. A shiver down Krakoa's spine. I don't know if the island has a spine, but if it did. Zeno are ruthless, resourceful, and terrifying in their methods, successfully using the captured Domino skin to ensure their assassination team's success. Yikes. And also ick. I love these ladies so much. They are basically a villainous eco-terrorist version of the Golden Girls group. They are sassy elderly women who used to work for corrupt and greedy biotech companies who did not care about the effects of their work in regards to the planet's well-being. As such, these women decided to fight back. They planted their own seed within all the companies, hoping to infiltrate them over time so that they would then have control of all plant life on Earth, deciding what grows and what does not grow. However, with the Krakoa's miracle plants and miracle medicine hitting the market as a result of the mutant nation being recognized globally, their plans, of course, were threatened. Horticulture formed, and these four women, Opal, Lily, Augusta, and Edith, threatened the mutants of Krakoa. This group is a little lighter when it comes to, I would say, their hatred of mutant kind. Really, they kind of just hate anyone who opposes them and anyone who harms the Earth. That's what they're all about. They're all about just like, we want to make sure that plants are alright. That's their plan. So when they first attacked, it was with a green sticky substance that appeared to neutralize mutant powers, and they actually vowed to either cause Krakoa to join them, or they would basically cut them down like a weed. So they were just basically like, look, we don't have to hate you, but don't be a jerk. Probably one of the worst mutant-hating villains, or perhaps in terms of how much he hates them, one of the best, I guess you could say, in this regard, is Reverend William Stryker. Stryker sees mutants as demons, and due to his own personal beliefs and experiences, he believes it's basically his true divine calling to like eradicate them. He has been a villain of the X-Men, Wolverine, and he's also of course been affiliated with the Weapon X program. Yeah. I really love Brimstone Love. Such a fun, weird villain. Brimstone Love is a seemingly complicated villain in the Earth 616 reality. He initially appeared as an alternate reality villain, appearing first in the 2099 alternate future reality of Earth 928. There he is a sadistic villain who's obsessed with misery and pain and seems to thoroughly enjoy tormenting mutants specifically, despite also being a mutant himself. In the Earth 616 reality, he created his Theater of Pain in response to the creation of Krakoa, but would later seemingly join the mutants during Fall of X after Orchis attacked at the Hellfire Gala and ended up seizing enough power and control to almost completely eradicate planet Earth of mutants. Kind of strange, but I also haven't read that, what he did later. I've only read the other stuff in Marauders, and I was like, that's a pretty crazy change of heart, but alright. Moira was at one point powerful enough to have almost successfully wiped out all mutants. If it weren't for Mystique and Destiny, she would have actually succeeded, even though she claimed during that past life that she only intended to create a cure to offer to those who wanted it. Destiny knew that any cure that was created would essentially become weaponized and forced on mutants regardless of their own wants or their desires. For those who haven't been reading along recently with the events of the current X line of comics, it was of course revealed that Moira herself was actually a mutant whose power was basically reincarnation in her own form. When Moira died in her life, she was basically reborn as herself, but with all the memories of her past life, and then she would relive her whole life again and she could do things differently if she wanted to. As such, Moira wasn't just a dangerous potential villain for the X-Men, but kind of the whole of Earth 616, which actually seems to be tied to Moira's existence in her 10th life. Pretty crazy stuff. Moira is no longer a mutant after being cured in the 2021 Inferno series when Mystique shot her with a weapon of Forge's design, which of course zaps mutants of their powers. But she still is a dangerous woman with a lot of information. And also, she's completely crazy now. It was heavily implied that the creation of Krakoa was kind of all about eventually ridding the world of mutants over time, with Krakoa being like their last hurrah in terms of Moira's evil plan. Also pretty sneaky evil plan to be like, I'll give them Krakoa, they'll never know, they'll think I'm working with them, and they'll all die out. While the heroic Marauders team might operate separately from the X-Men, they were initially made up of a lot of former and current X-Men members, including one of the original team members, Bobby Drake. And that initial roster also included Storm as well. Man, that initial roster was OP. This team, led by Captain Kate, ended up going up against the anti-mutant organization Homines Verendi, which is composed of former Inner Circle members of the Hellfire Club. Also, can we just acknowledge how great the Hellfire Trading Company was though? Separate of course from Homines Verendi, and we're going to talk about that too, but also, man, Hellfire Trading Club, what a great time. Homines Verendi were previously known as the unofficial Hellfire Brats, and were originally part of the Hellfire Academy. The team also has their own White Queen, their own Black King, and the like, similar to the Krakoa's Quiet Council and of course the former Hellfire Club. Although today we know the Hellfire Club as being a mainly mutant villain group when they are being villainous, which more recently of course evolved into the Hellfire Trading Company during the Krakoan era, becoming somewhat more heroic in their pursuits, or at the very least more neutral, considering that Sebastian Shaw was still heavily involved and of course sometimes up to no good. It might surprise you to learn that when the Hellfire Club started, mutant hate was actually one of the things that was on their agenda. Oh yeah, or at least shortly after they started. Maybe like mutant hate is a bit of a strong word, but I would say it's hate that stems out of, you know, like most people, their fear of mutants. Early on, the club became involved with Donald Pierce, and at one point they were actually attempting to hunt down mutants with their own sentinels. It wasn't until the seeming death of Sebastian Shaw's fiancée, Lord Chantel, that the mutants who were a part of the Hellfire Club, the few of them, rose up and overthrew the ruling Inner Circle, taking the club for themselves, while later on recruiting other mutants in to influence its ranks. And of course Sebastian Shaw and Emma Frost being a couple of the top dogs in terms of the mutants that we had at that time. Albert Carey made his first appearance in the X-Force 2022 annual. Here he appears as a scientist working for Orchis. In the annual he appeared in, Carey went up against Wolverine, Domino, and Quentin Quire's Kid Omega. Honestly, that would probably be pretty challenging. He planned to do a short burst of tests on the captured mutants after luring them into a trap. He planned on them dying during these tests, but on keeping the data of said tests to learn from. While they stole the motherboard which stored information for the potential devices and stratagems that they were actually testing at that time, Albert Carey, who seemingly ran the tests, was pretty confident that with time they could actually rebuild what they lost, and more vitally, he saw it actually as a win in that they now have more information, which opens up new knowledge and possible future questions and experiments as a result. I feel like we haven't really seen any more of him, but I feel like that was a cool seed that we planted. Will we come back to it? Did we come back to it and I missed it? Let me know. One of the biggest bads in terms of mutant hate groups I would say right now in the comics still has to be Orchis. Orchis was made up of various influential groups, some of them villainous, some not, who were brought together investing their money, their time, and their resources in the pursuit of basically combating and nerfing mutant evolution. Krakoa was such a big deal that it literally united everyone under the umbrella of Orcus to pool their resources and rally against mutant advancements and mutant independence in the future that the island nation had promised. Basically, if you all unite to create a really awesome mutant superpower, your enemies and sometimes your allies will also unite to make sure that that power isn't too powerful or maybe doesn't exist at all.